Angel. We've got Angel here, sitting here. Thank you very much again, Angel. We're having doing a few little videos today. But someone I know, they said, well, they just couldn't get it because they didn't see Polaris and all that, and it was kind of wrong. It didn't fit in. They, like a lot of us have woken up, they didn't think that fitted in and everything. And so you explained it to me. So explain it again, dear Angel.
All right. There's this thing, and I should have prepared it. I'm trying to do it now, called an astrolabe. Astrolabe, which is Latin for something, I'm sure. Okay, yeah, where's my picture? I could have done a screen share, but yeah, get off my screen. I don't want to get passwords. Keep using passwords. No, just let me see. I hate every time I try to use these things, they add some new function. I don't want passwords, and I don't want it to get passwords. I'm sorry. This is horrible that it's just not letting me go to a website. There we go. All right. See.
It's done it again.
It has. And the phone that I would use to show you is the one I'm using. So I can try to do a screen. It does. There's a thing called an astrolabe. You can go ahead and put it up on screen, whatever it is. They have one that's made out of cardboard, which is the one that I would suggest to do the experiment. You take the thing, you tear this thing apart, and you just look at all the stars as one big mess. Okay. Now I have them all as one big mess. Only they're not quite in the shape I like, but it's what I got. Okay, here they are right here. Now this would be like, I guess you could say, the inverse of a globe, but in honesty, I'd rather have the flat version because you see more of the reference. Right. So if you're here, well, this is the thing. So this isn't the Earth. Okay, this is like the Milky Way you're looking at right here. But let's say you're here on the Earth looking up, you will see these, and as it moves you'll see these, and you'll see these, but you, me, where I am, won't ever see the stuff that people down in like New Zealand or Australia or South America will see. That doesn't mean that they're not charted. This whole thing right here is pretty much set in stone, or in this case it's laminated onto a piece of whatever this stuff. Yeah, plastic, vinyl. But either way, these don't move. These are what are called the fixed stars, as referred to in the Bible. The wandering stars, those are going to be like Jupiter and Saturn, Mercury, Venus, Mars, the moon, the sun, and I believe Naturu. How do you pronounce that? The dark sun?
I don't know. I just call it the dark sun.
Okay, we'll call it the dark sun. Those are the wandering stars. So they, to my understanding, are the ones that are tracked by the Antikythera mechanism. So the Antikythera tracks them. So how can we not acknowledge them? And I think if you want to, visualize things like this, you don't not see it because it's on the other side of the globe. You don't not see it because it's out of your visual range.
Well, you can only see for so far.
Right, you can only see so far, no matter what. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean it's not mapped. None of this is guesswork. All of this, everything I'm holding in my hand here, this is all pretty much set in stone. You can look at it now. We can look at it 20 years from now. We could look at it 100 years ago. And these are all going to be the same, and we can use them as reference, and we've been using them as reference for navigation.
That tells you something, doesn't it?
Using them with sextants and other things for a long time. So it is not, there should be very little to no guesswork.
We don't see the Southern Cross, do we?
We don't, because we're not far enough south. I don't see the Northern Lights because I'm not far enough north. That doesn't mean they don't exist. And that doesn't mean they're not recreatable. And that doesn't mean they're not a real physical thing that happen. You can't deny what it's like saying you never see a shooting star. There's one. What was that? Oh, you know, these are things, these are celestial events. They do occur. They are very well documented. And someone who says that just because they haven't seen the Northern Star, they can't see the Big Dipper, that they think it's poppycock. Well, thousands of other people for hundreds of years don't think it's poppycock. So, you know, who I really, this is not one that I think is really up for negotiation. The star charts are the star charts, and regardless of the shape of anything, they are very well documented, and you can use them to feel your way around. And if you know where you are, even if you don't know, you're in the middle of some ocean somewhere, to the ball, just some ocean somewhere. If I can find my bearing, I get my chart, and I know this way is towards the Northern Star. All I have to do is go that way if I want to go north, or that, I get my bearing and I know where I'm going because I understand how to read it. And we know they all go around here. So you can find, I don't know where it is on here. In fact, this is something I was never, little bit of history here. I thought that the celestial thing, what was your rising sign, what was your setting sign, what is your earth, what is your Sagittarius, the Taurus, what do you call those things?
Oh, yeah,
Your sign.
astrology.
Your I always thought that stuff was poppycock, bogus, because it was always passed off that way. The church even kind of passes off that way, when really it shouldn't be, because if we understood it, if instead of saying January, February, March, we say I was born in Jupiter rising, blah blah blah, you could use that with stellarium and or an astrolabe or something else to tell when you were born. It doesn't matter what calendar you're using, because the movements of the celestial bodies are on a set pattern. And if you know when they were, and I showed you that the set pattern resets every 500 years. So if you live 500 years, it's like if we based our New Year's around Halley's Comet, okay? That means every 72 years would be New Year's. In this case, every 500 years was New Year's. So some people see Halley's Comet twice in their life. You're not going to see it 3 times unless you live to be 150 years old. So it ain't going to happen. You would know if I told you, hey, I was born four cycles after Halley's Comet, that you would know about how old this person is, because you would date things based off celestial movements, not a calendar divvied down by some pope in Rome. God bless the Pope. Anyway, we have given our reading, knowledge, movement of time away to our government. Our government dictates us what the time is. They say, oh, we're going to skip a second here and leap year there. They are playing with time when we should read time from nature. They shouldn't dictate it. They like it that way so they can synchronize raids on houses and stuff, coordinated in different countries simultaneously. But nature doesn't care about that. Noon is noon everywhere at noon. The real length of a day isn't exactly 24 hours because of that whole skewing a bit each day.
You mean with the bit we were talking about before, with the time?
With how to calculate it based on the movement, either the true way all the math works, everything synchronizes, the Antikythera mechanism, the measurement of the foot, everything synchronizes if we calculate our year as 365.222 days. We can work that in synchronization with the foot to calculate the movements of all the celestial bodies if we measured it all in relationship to not the sun. The sun is a variable in the mix. The fixed stars are the map, the clock, the face of the clock under which we should be measuring time. The sun is a variable. It is as if we measure time, calculating everything from the hour hand on a clock. We don't. We should calculate time basing it off the face of the clock. And the day doesn't have to be 24 hours to the penny, because nature, you're just using it as a mathematical equation to calculate movements. And nature isn't going to be 24 hours exactly on the calculations. We like it that way. So when say you have 72 hours to complete this project or whatever, that is, we do that, but nature doesn't. And the way that we should, if we were really in tune with nature, is calculated it a different way. And it would allow us to know, based on the movements of where we are currently. I would love to do this. Take the antikythera mechanism and set it for today. And then we know the positioning of certain stars in the Bible at the birth of Christ. Go back to then and see what that length of time is. That will tell us, as you think that there might be a gap of 400 years. Some other people say there's a gap of 400 years where they skewed things, which the government can do. Hey, new calendar. I already showed you how they're trying to do it current day by using current era. Current era started about 4,000 years BC, but yet they're erasing that from history and calling BCE and CE and smacking that on top of AD and BC.
I know, how, when you've had that time for all those years, would they change that?
Well,
how could you one day just go
right now, that
not
example
BC?
the example I just gave you right now, okay, of changing BCE and CE and AD and BC. If they do that in one generation, one clock cycle of kids in school, time, current era will now have started 2,000 years ago instead of started 6,000 years ago. You see, we just truncated right there. In 20 years, we will have just
they're like
lost.
trying to get almost rid of the past. And
Yes, we have
era.
just truncated 4,000 years very cleanly, very easily, very quietly. And when people my age die, who is there to dispute that? We can bring in a calendar, a brand new calendar. Oh, we don't like the Jewish calendar, the Hebrew calendar, this calendar, that. The Roman Catholics bring in a calendar, and here is the calendar. They tell you the time. They tell you the date. They could tell you anything. Who is there at this point? We have been using this Roman Catholic calendar since hypothetically
especially as we are smoke screened, and a lot of people believe we've been to space and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard, isn't it? Because if you've got the people believing that, then they're going to believe anything, aren't they?
You don't have to believe what I'm saying. It's their story. We started using the Roman Catholic calendar approximately 700 years after the death of Christ, hypothetically, right? So at that time, they said, oh, we're year 700. Somebody there set that clock cycle. And then hypothetically, there's talk of between like, or what was it, 900 and 1300. There's no history in there, so maybe that's been squished out. So we really, the only way we would know is what I suggested, is we take the Antikythera mechanism, which hasn't lied yet. We get, doesn't matter the calendar date, matters where it is on its little dial. We get what today's setting is. And then we know the settings because they talk about it in the Bible of where the primary celestial bodies were from the birth of Christ. We dial it back to that setting and we look at that deviation. That tells us how far we are from what it says in the Bible. And if that doesn't marry up with the Roman Catholic Church, I think NASA Or is it Roman Catholics? Who do we get to slap? The Pope just died. Who do we get to fight? Let's go back to the
Thing is,
meter.
he said something years ago, right? Dave Marsh, if you remember him, he looked up getting the moon phases, and NASA gave him it was NASA information. They gave you the next 500 year eclipses or something, whatever it was, 5 moonrises, 500 years. So we must be in a simulation, really, because they could map, and you know that they mapped out eclipses in the 1800s. They could map them out, so they were clever enough to be able to do that then.
That's because, honestly, I believe on the 13th level, sub-level of the Vatican Library, in room 33, they on shelf, who knows, it says, hey, this is the math. It's gonna marry the Antikythera mechanism, which the scientists admit is accurate. So let's accept that as a given. It is accurate. It uses math in the form of gears. It's an analog computer to calculate the movements. So it's not gonna lie. The people, whoever gave your friend the 500 years into the future, they knew the math, but they're probably the people who did it, the ones that actually got the answer. They're either working with the messed up numbers with NASA and a lot of slide rules. They're going crazy with the slide rules there because they got to do heavy duty math, or they're actually using the simple math of the Antikythera mechanism, which could probably be put into Java, and we can calculate exactly where things are, not using a calendar, but using the calendar of the device. And we can see how many years, rotations, however you want to calculate it, because it's going to be rotations of this, not rotations of this, but it'll tell us with uncanny accuracy how many rotations back to the time of the birth of Christ, which we'll probably find out was in September, not December, but that's because they, not Vincent, the one pope that consolidated, Constantine, that consolidated all the holidays, so that ironically enough, a bunch of the holidays fell on top of pagan holidays, so they had to skew the birth of Christ there so they could slaughter children on Christmas. Anyway, so they have been telling us the time, but the Antikythera mechanism will tell us the duration, how many cycles, which I will suggest to you is years. It's years within a close enough things, because it's years within like 6 minutes. Every year we're off by like 6 minutes. Or I really think it's more like.
Imagine. So what's 3,000? Say 3,000. Just pick a number. 3,000. What's 3,000 times 6 minutes?
Well, I mean, it's a day or two. It's enough that we had to move some of they had to change the calendar in the 1500s, because they realized that when the day that the pagans use doesn't care about the calendar, they care about the position of the sun. The pagans are looking for when the sun hits the solstice and starts spinning back, when it crosses the equator down, when it stops and comes back, when it crosses the equator again. Those are their 4 cardinal things. They don't care what the calendar says. They don't care that it says Easter is on April 20th. They say Easter is when the sun is passing, I believe it's passing north. Yeah, it would be passing north across the equator. That is Easter. That is Ishtar Day. When that happens, that is Ishtar Day. And we can calculate that with uncanniness using stellarium, using the Antikythera mechanism, or very simply, since that's one of the 0 days, using the math that I've pointed out and suggested that is inherent in all of it, because the Antikythera mechanism is only using gears. They're finite numbers. We can calculate it. There's not a lot of guesswork to it. And they've admitted that it is correct, more correct than even NASA. But it all backs off of the fixed
Just
stars,
explain it
not
again
the
then.
sun.
It doesn't matter. You know, if you're in the south, you're not going to see the north. We don't see the southern star. So it's where you're positioned. It doesn't mean the stars
Right.
aren't there.
Now, there's
It
going to
just
be
means
someone in between, like someone, let's say uh, uh, Mexico. They might be able to see both, but they won't be able to see the northern star, and they won't be able to see that you have those three constellations down south that only people way down south can see. I
right.
know enough about star stuff to be dangerous, but not enough to be accurate. I understand. I have a sextant. I know someone that knows how to use it. And when I was a teenager on a sailboat in the middle of a lake, well, it was up in New York. He sat there for half a night and showed me how to use the thing. And I got a good glimpse of it. And I understand it. It's really all just math. You're just triangulating and drawing little things. The guy sees up the thing and he can see the bird in the tree and do the calculation. How high is the bird in the tree? It's all just math, but it's all based on the fact that the fixed stars are your roadmap, and you are mathematically trying to figure out where you are. You find a bearing, and you
It
mathematically
is
trying to
strange
figure out.
though, because like I see the Big Dipper going around my house. That is never included in star trails. That thing is going round. It's doing a square thing round. It goes to edges and turns round. In America, you get
You
the
don't
Big
have it as a
Dipper.
swipe. It actually makes turns.
Yes, the whole stars turn round. I've made videos about it.
Oh, I'd love to. Do you have a time lapse thing where you can actually?
No, I couldn't do that, but I went out to watch it and I noticed that they say that these stars are not a constellation, but the stars work off each other and the tail turns round and turns the thing round and then it goes in another direction and turns it round and goes in another direction. It's lower on the left side, higher on the right side of my house. But in America, you only get to see a bit of the Big Dipper sometimes. You don't see the whole thing. When I went to Denmark, I walked down my friend's garden and I could see the Big Dipper going around in the field next door, and it was tiny. See what I mean? It's where you're positioned, I suppose, in the world we
Oh,
live
okay.
in.
All right. Well,
I
Globebusters.
thought when
The
you're
thing about
north, so if obviously Denmark is more north, then it's smaller there. It goes round my house here. It's quite big, but it's even bigger
I,
in
I'm
America.
sh- I'm probably sure on the given day when it's closer to being more on top of you than off to into the distance, that it can be big if it's more above you than off into the
It's like
distance.
America's a lot bigger country than us for a start, England, isn't it?
Yeah, but
So
our
that's probably why
our
it's
sky isn't
magnified.
higher.
Well, you don't always get to see the whole of the Big Dipper in America. You get to see some of it because it's
I
much bigger. It's smaller here, but it's still big. You go to Denmark, it's a lot smaller. Do you see what I mean? So it obviously depends where you are.
Well, and also when this thing is rotating. There are
The
things that
sky, the sky's moving.
this thing. Yeah, well, this thing is fixed. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. This thing is rotating at a slow progression. It does rotate. Um, that is kind of how you can tell time is where you are on here. And that's the other thing about your sign, your Sagittarius, your whatever you are, is that tells approximately when you were. It tells your birth. They didn't care back in however long ago the system was created. Who cares if today is your birthday or you are approximately 56 years old? It doesn't matter because they're not, oh, your driver's license expires at midnight on this day. No, it's like, hey, it's time to pull the fields. How do you know? Well, there was a red moon last month, which means that there was a lot of blah blah in the air, and so this is the time, soon as the moon is here, that we know is the right time to start picking, because the moon affects a lot of things that grow, and it pulls flowers at night and things like that. So a lot of your farm work. Everyone was really farm work. They weren't sitting there. They weren't lawyers. They weren't ambulance chasers. They were, when do you farm? When do you hunt? When the bear doesn't sit there and look at a calendar. The bear knows, temperature right. Ooh, red sun. Ooh, time to go out. You know, it doesn't look at a calendar. It looks at things around it. It looks at nature. It gets its answers from nature. And we don't. We get our answers from our iPhone. But if we recognized and took into awe and appreciated the system that somebody created, it would be great.
Yeah, so that's all we need to do on that one, because basically the stars are there. It just depends where you are on the map.
Yes, and the map is very fixed. Someone can't say they don't believe that there's a North Star because they can't see it because they're in South America.
So because I can't see the Southern Star, I say it doesn't exist.
Right.
It does exist.
But there is a map. I can't say Albuquerque, New Mexico doesn't exist because I've never driven through it. But I know I can't say Big Ben doesn't exist. I know Big Ben exists. I know Big Ben is there. I've seen it on millions of movies. But aside from that, I know it's there because I know people have seen it. I've heard firsthand. You've probably seen it. I've never seen it. I've never been even in the country. However, I can't say I don't believe in Big Ben because I'm that obtuse. There's no other word I can stick there.
Yeah,
there are
you're
some
not
things
the only one in the world. There's loads of us, and we all see different things.
You know, I can tell you Area 51 exists. You know, there are certain things that are just given, even though I haven't been there. I know it exists.
Shall we stop the video now then for this one?
Go for it.
Thank you so much for explaining that, Angel. There you go.